Okay, so now we are going to start working on the services section. So this is the initial transition, and when we hover over any card, you see the read more contents. Now in order to define these cards, let's first figure out what kind of top level structure it is. If you notice, you can superficially divide this card into three parts. The first part is image, and then the second part is the summary, which contains the heading and little bit info about that particular card. Then when we hover over them, we see the third part. So basically we are going to divide this card into three parts. Okay, let's go down to the services section. Okay, so we already have H1 over here, but we have to remove this text. So first of all, let's create a container for the cards, the grid cards that we will create. Now let's create the structure for our first card, and then we will copy paste it. Now let's create an image div which will contain the image. So the image is, let's get it from images. Let's start with web development. Okay. Now if you notice, I have changed the images in the demo project. The reason was I have had these images for so long, I don't remember where did I get them from. So I'm not sure if they are freely available to be used. That's why I have replaced those images with the images from the pexel.com, because these are free images and they could be easily distributed as well. So I'll upload this project along with those images for you guys to practice on. Now the second div is, let's give it class name description, or let's make it smaller and let's turn it into details. Now let's create H3 and the title is web development. Now let's create a paragraph with the class name summary, and over here let's put in lorem with maybe 7 letters. Now this is our second part. We are going to nest third part within the second part. The reasoning for that will be made clear when we move on to the styling this section. So let's give this div a class name read more, and over here let's write lorem, let's give it 18 characters. Sorry, not characters, words. Maybe let's put in some more. Let's make 5 more. Okay, we'll see about that. Okay, so this is our first card. It's HTML structure. Now where does it start? It starts over here, the card. Let's go to its ending div over here and start copying it. Copy card 1, card 2, paste, card 3, paste, card 4, why do I keep doing this, paste, card 5, paste, card 6 and paste. Let's have a look in the browser. So this is our demo. Let's go to our own project, and this is how it looks. Now we are ready to move on to styling this section. Let's go to style.css, and first of all we are going to define some styles for the H3, because the remaining two sections also have this H3. Where have we defined H1 styles? Okay, so no, not this one. Let's go up. Okay, so this is the global H1 styles. Now over here, let's define some styles for H3, irrespective of any section. Okay, first of all, let's set the text transform property to capitalize. Then font family, let's make it bitter. Okay, then font size, let's make it 2.2 rem, and we'll see if it needs adjustment. Line height as well, let's make it 2.3. Yeah, 2.3 is enough. Then let's change the color to primary text. Let's also give it some padding all around 1 rem. Okay, so this is our web development, but this is different. Let's give it font weight and make it 500 and see its effect. Yeah, I think now it resembles this one. Okay. Okay, now we are done with the H3. So let's go down. Let's look for 1200. Okay. Over here, services section starts. Let's start with services, and then there we have a class called container. So first of all, let's set its margin to auto. This will help in bringing the contents in the center. Then let's set the display to grid template columns. Now over here we are going to use a function called repeat because the number of cards in the services can vary at any time. So we are going to make it dynamic by using the repeat function instead of giving it fixed number. So over here for the repeat function, the first parameter is the number of cards that you want to be placed in one single row. And the second parameter is what is going to be the width of that card. So instead of telling the exact number, we are going to set it to auto fit. By setting the first parameter to autofit, we are letting the browser decide the number of cards each row should contain. So if the screens are smaller, the browser might fit in just one card per row. If the screen is bigger, the browser might decide to put in 15 cards per row. The browser has the control. However, we are going to give it one condition based on which the browser can decide how many cards should fit in. So that condition is the second parameter. So over here, we have to tell it what should be the minimum size of each card. Now, in order to fit in more cards per row, the browser is definitely going to shrink the size of the cards. So over here, we have to constrain the browser that a card cannot go smaller than this width. So we can give it, let's say, 300 pixels. But if this is how we are defining, we are only saying fit as many 300 byte cards as possible. But we are not telling it to dynamically adjust the size if there is more space width-wise in the browser. So let's say if there are 2 cards and the browser size is 900 pixels, then the browser will place 2 cards, but the rest of the 300 pixels will be free. But now we also have to tell it if there is more space and less number of cards, then you can expand the size of the card as well, such that there is no free space in one corner and all the cards shoved in the other corner. So to do that, we are going to use another function over here, which is called min-max. And this min-max takes 2 parameters. The first one will be the minimum size of the card in terms of width, and the second one will be the maximum size of the card in terms of width. So as far as minimum width is concerned, we are going to put in 300 pixels back. And as far as the maximum width is concerned, we are going to give browser the freedom to decide on its own. So instead of giving it any concrete value, we are giving it 1 FR, means equally divide the remaining space between all the cards. So this way, all the cards will equally expand. Okay. So this is all it means. Now remember this min and max will apply to the number of cards that can fit in single row. For example, if you notice over here in our demo project, there's still some space left, but these cards haven't expanded. The reason is this decision was taken based on the first row. So the number of cards that can fit in the first row, the remaining cards will also be given the same width. It's not like these cards can have different width and these one will have different width to fill up this gap. However, if this is what you want, then you can go with the flex. I wanted all the cards to have same size no matter what, so I went with the grid style. Okay, let's see how they look. Okay, so this is how they look. That's because the image sizes are much bigger. Okay, we'll fix it. Now if you notice, there is also some gap between all of these elements, horizontally as well as vertically. So we have to make sure there is this much amount of gap as well. Because if you notice over here, currently there is no gap between these elements. So to do that, we are going to set gap to 3 rem. Well, we still can't see the gap because the image is overflowing. So I'm going to comment this out for the time being, and when we have adjusted the dimensions of the image, then we will uncomment it. Okay, so these were the properties for the container itself. Now let's define some properties for the card. So services, container, and card. If you notice, the parent of this card is container, and by setting its grid template column property, we have basically divided the width of the browser into different chunks. The minimum width of each chunk is 300 pixels. However, the maximum can be any value, including the whole width of the browser. But the point is, once we define this property, we know what is going to be the width of each element of the grid, that is, width of this card. Now we have to give it maximum height as well. Otherwise, based on the contents of each card, one card might be taller than other card, and therefore there won't be any symmetry between the cards. I want symmetry between all the cards, so I am going to give it fixed height as well. So the height is 52 viewport height. So the width is defined and height is also defined now. In fact, let's make it maximum height. So by setting the maximum height, there is still a possibility that the size of the card can be smaller, but we are ensuring that it can't go beyond 52 viewport height. Now, in order to avoid the possibility that some cards are smaller, we will ensure that each element has same text or same number of rows so that each column occupies same amount of space. Now next we have to divide this height, that is 52 viewport height, into two different parts. The first one will contain the image and the second one will contain the rest of the contents. So display is grid, and because we are going to divide this card into fixed elements, so instead of using repeat with autofit or anything, we are going to say grid template rows. The first one we have to give it value 65%, and for the second one we are going to reserve 35%. So basically we want, what is this? So basically we want the most of the space in terms of height be occupied by the image and the rest be reserved for the contents. Let's have a look, and it will be messy. Okay, it's still almost no effect. Now because we haven't yet fixed the dimensions of the image, so it's displaying with its original dimensions and hence it's overlapping and overflowing. So why not let's first handle this image so that we can see the effect of rest of the properties. Okay, so our image is, let's copy this, copy, paste. We still have some more properties for this card to define, but I am going to define some properties for the first image div. And to this div we are going to give some round edges. So border radius, let's give it 6 pixels, just slight round edges, not very noticeable but slight edges. Okay, copy, paste, and the image itself. This is actually image div, not just image. Okay, for the image, now because the parent of this image is this image div, and if you notice this, the parent of this image div is this card. And for this card, we have defined the fixed height, which is 65% and 35%. Now, because the image div is the first child of this card, so it will occupy this 65% height. So this means this image has already got height defined. And because the parent of this card is this container, which has got width defined over here. So this means this image has also got some height defined already. So we don't need to explicitly define the height because this image inherits explicit height and width from its parent and grandparent. However, for this image, we have to make sure that its width is 100% of its parent. For that, we have to explicitly define its width and height also 100%. Okay. So now, by defining this width and height to be 100%, we are ensuring that this image will fit 100% width of its parent and 100% height of its parent as well. So the height of this parent is 65% out of 52 viewport height and minimum 300 pixels out of 100% of the browser window. Then we have to make sure that this image fits within these defined width and height. For that, we are going to set object fit property to cover. That means cover that whole space. And if the image is bigger, then we want the image position to be, by the image position I mean start placing it from the center. So object position is center. Okay, let's have a look first. Okay, so that's the reason we were not seeing any changes. If you notice over here, so no changes. I thought it has something to do with the image size. That is also true, but because if you notice, we have made a spelling mistake. So these properties has never taken effect for the services container children. So let's put in V over here and V over here. Okay. Good, great. That's much better now. Okay, so now we have to place in this gap that we were talking about. This gap over here. So for that, let's uncomment it. Gap 3 rem. Okay, that's much better now. Okay, next what we are going to do is that we are going to bring in some space between the left and right edges of the browser and the contents. Now because this is a section, but our project and contact are also sections, so we are going to define this property for the section itself so that it has effect on the upcoming sections as well. Okay, so let's search for the section property itself. Okay, so this is the section, and over here let's give it some padding. So what padding shall we give? Let's give it 2 rem all around. But first, let's have a look on the main section as well. If we have defined any padding for this, no, okay. And for the, what was the other one? The about us section. Okay, so we haven't defined any padding for this section as well. And now we have a problem. Okay, because we gave padding, so there is some space over here. That means we don't want this. So let's go back. Let's search for it. Okay, and what we are going to do is that we are going to say section excluding, so not. So this property will apply to all the sections except for what is defined over here. So first of all, let's include the the section with the class name main, then another not with the section with the class name about. I hope these are the names that I have given. Now let's put in the padding back, which was 2 rems. So let's make it 0 rem top and bottom, and for the left and right, let's give it 2 rem. So now this padding will be applied to all the sections except for those sections which has a class name main or about. Okay, let's refresh one more time. Let's go back to the main. So no padding. Let's check services and nothing. Wait a second. Why did I put it within these brackets? This is not supposed to be in the brackets. Yeah, what did I do now? So, okay, let's remove this and this. Okay. Let's have a look. Okay, so there is this padding now. Now let's go to the home and what's wrong? Now there is no space over here, but for the home there is. Do you think we have given the wrong class name? Okay, so first section is home and I have given it class name main. Okay. Let's change this to home. That's good now. Okay, home has no padding. About has no padding. The services has padding though. Okay, that's good. That's what we wanted. However, I don't think there is any smooth edges over here, so there is something wrong there as well. Let's go back. So border radius 6 pixels. Let's make it 12 pixels. Still no effect. Do you think this image is somehow overflowing? Because technically speaking, this is still the image div. However, we are giving it round edges by setting the border radius. So maybe the image is not taking into account those round edges and it's trying to fit into the whole image div. So let's give it overflow hidden. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so now it has got round edges. However, 12 pixels is a lot. Let's bring it back to, instead of 6 or 12, let's make it 8 pixels. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, now the first child of this card is image. We have already defined styles for it. Now the second child is this whole section, this whole part, which has a class name details. And in details div, the first child is h3. The second one is this paragraph with the class name summary. And the third one is a div with the class name read more. So we have to define styles for these 3. So the first thing is that we have to bring all these contents in the center. So the easiest way to bring them is we are going to set display property flex for them. Then justify content center and align item center will do the trick. So let me copy this part. Copy, paste, and the second child is details. Set display to flex. Now by default all the elements go into single row, so we have to set the flex direction to column. Then justify content center, align items center as well. Okay, good. Now let's work on this summary. So let's copy this, paste it over here, and then summary. For the padding, top and bottom, let's make it 0.5 frame. For the left and right, let's ignore. Font size, let's make it 1.5 frame. Okay, so this is how it looks. This is the summary. Now we can move on to this details section. Sorry, not details, read me section. So, which is a child of details section. So copy, paste, and read more. Now for the time being, I'm going to set its display to none. I want to make it invisible for the time being. Okay, so this is how our card looks in the beginning, but it's too white. I haven't given any background color to this section, so first of all, let's go to the services and give it some background color. So over here where our services section begin, let's give it background color. This is the color, primary color. Yeah, that's better. But what about the text? We have to give it color. So to this card, let's define a color. Secondary text. Okay, now the text is visible. Just to make sure the read more has also taken effect, let's go down and comment it. Okay, good. Now we have to make sure that this read more is invisible, but when we hover over any card, this text overlaps this whole card. So to do that, we have to make sure the referencing element with which this read more will adjust itself is the card element itself over here. This one, card. So to make the read more element reference this card while positioning itself, we have to first of all set the position relative for the card itself. Now defining this property for the card will not have any effect on the card itself. However, because of this property, now read more element can adjust itself with respect to the card itself. So what we are going to do is that first of all, we are going to set position to absolute. Then top is going to be 0. That means the top of this read more and the top of card is going to be the same. Then left is 0 as well. That is whatever is the left of the card. Let's bring the right 0 as well. That is give the whole 100% width of the card. And then bottom 0 as well. That is the whole height of the card as well. So now just to see the effect, let's give it background color. Let's give it some background color. Let's give it this one, some light color. Let's give it aqua. Okay, fine. Okay, so this is how it looks. Now see the color that these cards have. So if you notice, this has a gradient color. It starts as darkish gray color, and then as it moves towards the right, this turns into the primary color. So we have to give the same color. So we need two colors that transition from one color to other. So instead of background color, we have to use background property. Then linear gradient, and we want it to transition from left to right. So to right is the first parameter, then the second two parameters of the two colors. So first one is going to be primary color, and the secondary color is this outline. Okay, that's good. Now we have to decrease its opacity so that we can see what's behind it as well. So we are going to set its opacity to 0.9, just a little bit. Okay, that's better. Now we have to work on this text. So the first thing is that we have to bring it in the center. So we are going to set display to flex, justify content center, align item center. So font size, let's make it 1.5 frame. Okay, that's better. We need some padding. Padding or all around, let's make it 1 frame. Okay, that's better. However, I think we need some more text. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go back to index.html, add some more text over here, and then we will continue from there. Okay, now to each card, we already have this text. Now then I have added a BR and copy pasted the same text, and one more BR and again copy pasted the same text. This way, this is how the text in each card looks. Now we have to make this part invisible, and only when we hover over the card, this text should appear. So to do that, what we are going to do is, to this one, let's use transform and translate, sorry, not rotate, translate Y 100%. So we want it to go 100% down. So this way it will be invisible. Now translating 100% vertically has moved this element from here to here, but it's still visible. So what we are going to do is that we are going to set the display to none, and then we are going to define hover property for the card, whole card. So copy, and over here let's paste it and define the hover property. So when the card is hovered, let's bring this part back. Copy, paste it back. So when the card is hovered, we want the display property set back to flex and transform, translate Y back to its original position. Okay, when we hover over any card, its associated read more div gets visible, but we don't see any transitioning effect like this one. So what we are going to do is that we are not going to work with the display property. So let's make it display flex. Okay, so now we can see the transitioning effect. But the problem is that when we are not hovering over any element, we can still see the read more section. For these two, it's over here. For these two, it's behind these cards, and for these two cards, it's over here. So we have to make sure it's hidden. So instead of working with display property, because if we work with display property, we don't see the smooth transitioning effect. So what we are going to do is that we are going back to the card itself, and over here we are going to set overflow is hidden. Remember, we made this card to start over here and then we translated 100% down. So basically this read more section is now overflowing out of this card area. So by setting the overflow hidden, the read more is invisible in the beginning, but when we hover over it, it gets smoothly transitions up to the top. Okay. So this transitioning is done. However, now we have to work on, let's refresh, this transitioning effect. So in the beginning, some cards fall down and sometimes are brought up. So to define these properties, we have to work with the card itself. But we have to work on even and odd cards. So what we are going to do is that, first of all, let's define the transform property for all the cards and translate them. Let's make it 60 pixels. It's minus, let's make it positive. Then copy, paste, card dot show, copy, paste, and bring it back to its original position, which is 0. Now we have to get a reference to this card in our JavaScript. So copy, and let's go over here, services. Since we have multiple cards, so query selector all and paste it. Now let's go down and over here, services.for each, let's make it card. Then observer.observe and give it the card. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so we can see the transitioning effect, but all are transitioning from bottom up. So now we go back to styles, and over here let's copy this part, paste it over here, and now we are going to access its nth child, but we are interested in even child. And for that we are going to set, copy this, paste, and -60. So this part is telling that all the children should transition from bottom to up, but then we are explicitly targeting even cards and we are making it transition from top to bottom. Refresh and you can see this transitioning effect. Okay, now we have to change the images. Okay, now let's check. Okay, good. Okay, so we are done with this part. Now let's see how does it look responsively. Okay, so this is 480. Let's go to services. I think it looks fine. Maybe we need some heading between the services and this navigation bar, but let's go to 768. Now with respect to 768, everything seems fine as well. Again, some heading at the top. 1200. Okay, everything, I don't think there is any need to change anything except for putting some padding over here. Okay, so this is something to do with the section. So instead of defining any properties over here, we are going to look for generic properties for the section, and over here let's give it, well, not over here, rather over here. Padding, let's give it padding top, make it 2 rem. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, since we don't need to make any other changes to make it more responsive, because we have already said most of our unit is rems, so rem automatically adjusts when the font size is decreased. Okay, now check services. Okay, there is enough padding. Now let's check 1200. Okay, let's refresh and see the effect. Okay, we can still see the transitions. Good. Now with respect to 768. Refresh. Okay, there's still the transitioning effect. Now 480. 480. Okay, good. So we can still see the transitioning effect as well. So that means we don't need to make any changes as far as the responsiveness is concerned for our services section. Okay, so with this we are ending our today's video as well. In the next video we will work on the project. So let's go to the demo and have a look at the project. Okay, so this is the project that we will be working on in our next video. Until then, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe and share. Happy coding!